this month on Games with Gold. There's a lot of new players out there, and I thought it'd be helpful to basically teach those guys some of the things that I've learned over the time and see where we go. First off, we start with the settings. Now, the temptation of a lot of people is to use the hybrid controls or the NHL 94 controls. Don't start with the skill stick and learn to use it. It can be overfacing at first, especially to a new player, but the only advantage the others give you is on face-offs. Everything else you're at a massive disadvantage. It's not that complicated to learn it, and that's really the only thing you should be doing. Automatically back skate is on, and it should be off. The auto back skate, when it's on, is an easy way to get beat down the sidelines. You will get beat for speed. It needs to be off. You need to get used to using the L trigger, which basically to control your back skating. It doesn't take long to learn, and it's a game changer. If your back skate is on, you will get beat on the breakaway all the time. Turn it off. As far as pass assist goes, leave it on 100. There was a debate for a while over what exactly it did. It was confirmed not so long ago by a developer that it's the room for error. Basically, the difference between the low pass assist and the high and the 100 is the room for error, and basically leaving it on 100 is the best thing you can do. Let's go and have a look at some strategies. Obviously, strategies are subjective. You can ask 10 different people and you get 10 different answers, but ultimately this is what I will go with. It can vary from person to person, but here's what I will go with and why. I'll go over a few of them and what's different about the others, and basically why I would use these ones. So the forecheck, I use 1-2-2 passive. There's not a great deal of difference between 1-2-2 passive and 1-2-2 aggressive. The difference is where basically the forecheck lines up. The 1-2 aggressive lines up deeper in the zone. Against good players, obviously poor players you can pressure them, but against good players, a lot of guys can control the puck, and you basically find yourself with too many men up ice. That's why I go for the 1-2-2 passive. The 2-3 and the weak side lock sound great in principle. With the way the AI works, I find them in the wrong place at the wrong times, and it's just much easier to control the AI and the man you want to on the 1-2 passive. The neutral zone is one that there's a lot of debate over. I personally use 1-2-2 red, and I'll explain why in a minute. There's not much difference again between the 1-2-2 red and the 1-2-2 blue, simply the fact of where the defenders stand. And I find the 1-2-2 blue too forward or too high up, and that's why I use the red. A lot of people use the 1-4. I can't stand it. I find it extremely negative. It's basically park the bus. 4 defenders basically sit on your blue line, and it's extremely negative, and you've got no speed going backwards. 1-3-1 was, you do see a lot. It gives you that one defender trailing behind you can cover. The reality is though, if you're left with one defender against 2 forwards, that you're probably conceding a goal against a good player 9 times out of 10. So I don't think it has all that much merit. The 1-2-2 red basically sets up with one defenders holding the neutral zone, 2 forwards in front, and then one player trying to obviously pressure the breakout. Basically what it allows you to do is it allows you to swarm the players and basically stop them at your own blue line. If you let good players into your zone, the reality is with good players you're not leaving your zone until either they get a goal scoring chance or your keeper makes a save. Good players, once they're in the offensive zone, don't come out of it, and they pass the puck, they cycle well, and ideally you want to be stopping players before they get into your zone. Can't always happen. Sometimes you got to take a defensive position, fair enough, but I find 1-2-2 red gives you a good chance of doing that. 1-4 then it is extremely popular, extremely negative, extremely boring, but good players can tear it to pieces because they've spent all year playing against it. The trap in the forecheck is very subjective. A lot of people go with the full forecheck, which is all well and good, providing you're winning the puck. If you are not, you leave yourself very vulnerable to breakouts, and so for that reason I tend to lean more towards the trap. I don't go full trap, it is very negative, but I like to leave it somewhere between that sort of 2 to 3 mark. If you're not confident in defence or you're lacking speed, maybe look towards the 0 for the full trap. Any advantage your players get skating backwards ahead of the people coming forward gives you an advantage. Offensive pressure, I personally have it on aggressive. I've never noticed any negative for leaving it on aggressive, so I would do that. Defensive pressure, here's the one that's a little bit controversial and a few different ideas. I always start a game with puck side attack, and here's why. A lot of players use high pressure. Against bad players, high pressure works because you're overfacing them, you're in the faces, they can't move the puck fast enough, but here's the reality. A good player will tear high pressure to pieces easily. There's too many gaps, there's too many holes, people go wandering and they leave their assignment and you pull men out of position. Against high pressure, good players will just cycle, tear you apart, then slot it in with an open man at the back post every single time without fail. High pressure is simply it leaves your team too vulnerable defensively. Puck side attack is a nice balance. It puts aggression on the puck carrier, allows you to put some pressure on, but still leaves people on the other side of the ice in the correct position. As the game goes on against certain ballerinas, and you'll see this online a lot, protect net is very, very popular. It puts people in front of the goal. Protect net and collapsing is the #1 way to stop the cross crease. Cross crease is very, very popular this year, very effective, and protect net and collapsing stops them. If I see an opposition who's lining up like this, I will just D2D one-timer all day. You'll get messages after the game telling you, oh, glitch goal, but the reality is if they're going to sit in front of the net, protect net and collapsing, I will just D2D one-timer all day with good offensive defensemen. So basically, protect net is something I fall back to if I need it. But I always start the game at least on puck side attack. Defensive strategy, there's a couple of different options here. Now collapsing is the one we've just discussed. It's a good way to sit in front of the net and stop the cross crease, and it gives you good position. But tight point has a lot of merits. It's the way you stop the D2D one time. If you're, for example, you find yourself collapsing in front of your goal, you're stopping the cross crease, well done, but all of a sudden the pressure's coming from the point, D2D one timer, and slap shots from defenders. But maybe look at moving to tight point. I spent a lot of time this year using tight point. It is very effective, but you do have to manually defend in front of your goal a little bit better. So yeah, tight point, you can get beat one-on-one. If you get beat one-on-one on the outside, it can create gaps. However, against D2D one time, it is probably the most effective setup. There's always a guy in front looking to block and in between trying to break up the pass. Staggered, personally I wouldn't use it. It has its merits principally, but the difference is the way the AI works. I find that you end up with guys leaving holes for a guy to just walk in and smash it past your keeper back post too easily. You do see some people online using staggered, and they can use it effectively, but personally I don't think it's anywhere near as effective as either the tight point or the collapsing. The penalty kill, I choose large box. It is pretty subjective in that sense. Diamond has its merits, passive box has its merits, but I find large box just puts you in position to do more damage on the penalty kill. Power play, I use shooting. To be honest with you, very often I dread a power play on this game because I seem to be far more effective 5-on-5 than 5-on-4. Now shooting, I think is the best of a bad bunch. Overload has its merits, but I do find that players are too spaced out, and there's might be puck movement and everything, but I find the players are far too spaced out, and it's easy to break up with the 4 defenders. Umbrella, I don't find really works in this game. The defender drifts into the middle to create the umbrella effect. You lose the D2D one-timer option, which is so effective. Defense, whenever you've got a D2D one-timer option, defenses hesitate because they've got to cover for that. As soon as you remove that option, they can just sit in front of the goal. It's just far too effective to do that. It doesn't really make much difference on it's basically AI tendency on that. On breakouts, here's something where again you'll get different opinions. A lot of people like to use the 3 high, for example, and the leave zone early. Great in principle, you get some really good breakaway chances. The problem is, against somebody who can remotely forecheck, you can quickly turn over the puck and end up 2-on-4. As a new player, I would use close support basically. So you've always got that quick passing option, and either blue to blue or strong side slant is the one I'll go with. I go with one side strong side slant personally, but that is a personal choice. Power play breakout, centre lane option. So many people skate down the wings on this game, and defenders, if you played the game even any remote amount of time, defenders know what's coming. And the centre lane option basically draws defenders inside to give you that pass outside, but it also gives you that option inside when inevitably the defenders drift out looking to take out the winger. 3-on-3 offence, the reason I go with passive is simply because 3-on-3, you turn over the puck on a 2-on-1, you are losing the game against any half decent player. I would rather play passively and look for the opposition to make their own mistake, so I go with the passive option. Now, when it comes to, I'll just go with defensive first because there's only one thing I want to talk about, the whole line and pinch. I personally always go in 0. It keeps defenders back, keeps them in position, and it nullifies a lot of the turning the puck over and being in trouble. Whole line and pinch, I will go with 0 on every defensive pair. The cycle shoot is irrelevant because it's AI related. Forward lines, now then, I'll show you in my next video why I set the energy levels up like I do, but efficiency and energy is important. If you find your players are tied in games, turn it down. Certain lines, if you've got a line for you don't really use, feel free to turn the energy up, the hustle up, but basically I leave it on that, and I'll explain on the second stream. don't block and block, turn it up to 10. So the idea obviously don't screen your own goalkeeper, blah blah blah. However, you want to be blocking shots. But on this game, almost every goalkeeper will go about 85% save percentage if you're winning games. It doesn't really make all that much difference which goalkeeper you use as long as they're tall. Blocking shots basically is another save your goalkeeper doesn't have to make. I will be looking to block as many shots as possible with the AI, so therefore I will go block shots on 10 on every single one. As far as the actual strategy goes, crash the net, I would start on all 4 lines as a beginner. It basically puts guys in front of the net, deflections, tips, screens. People don't like conceding them, but if people are going to crowd the net, try and get a deflection, try and get a screen, crash the net, putting pressure on in front of the goalkeeper, that's what I will be looking to do. I do it on all 4 lines. I then change in game and adjust accordingly. But crash the net is how I'd start the game. Behind the net certainly is a good option. Basically, it puts somebody behind the net all the time. So hypothetically, you enter the zone, down the right, the left winger will drop in behind the net, the centre will swing for the back post, and it can create good cycling opportunities. I usually have at least 1 line or 2 lines on behind the net, usually my playmaking second line. Behind the net is a good strategy, it sets up good cycles, and if I can get some video footage at some point, it'd be great to show you exactly what damage behind the net can do. It's a very, very good option for cycling the puck, and once you're in the zone you want to be cycling. The more you're controlling the puck in their zone, the less time they're attacking you. Against good players, the only real defence is to hold the puck and be in their zone against very good players. Behind the net, it allows you to do that, it allows you to cycle better. It's a very good option. Overload, personally, as a new player, I would avoid. In previous games, I had a lot more success with it. This year, less so. Players do move. It sets up good point, as in point shots. You can really move around, but I find the players too spaced out. And as a new player, I think you're much better staying with the crash the net option or the behind the net if you want to dabble in that. But I personally would avoid the overload option for new players. That's how I set up anyway. If you just want another quick look, how I set up, it's on the forecheck, it's 1-2 passive. Neutral zone is 1-2 red for those reasons described. Trap forecheck. If you've got slower players and you're outranked in your team, I'd maybe turn that to 0, but I personally set it lower mid. Offensive pressure aggressive. I've never really noticed that much difference when I've turned it to standard or aggressive, if I'm honest with you. Defensive pressure, I go puck side attack for the reason explained. During games, very often can change it to protect net, especially if somebody basically just going to sit and force feed the cross crease to me all day with no real options. I know a lot of guys who basically will only ever shoot with their front 3 forwards, that never ever cycle back to the defence. If I'm facing something like that, I'm going to protect net and collapse in all day long, and it'll just eat up the cross crease all day, providing you can manually defend. As long as you can manually defend, and obviously you can jump out on that short side snipe when they start going for that. A lot of players, when the cross crease isn't working, they'll try and cut inside and go for the short side snipe. On collapsing and protect net, you can trust the guy at the back post is going to do his job, and you can jump out on the guy going for the short side snipe. Again, it'd be nice to get some demonstrations of that one, get some video footage going. But yeah, I will go puck side attack to start the game, collapsing, use large box and umbrella. That I think is purely AI, doesn't make any difference. I've never noticed any difference. And the control breakout, the strong side slant is my personal choice. Power play breakout is the centre lane option. Quick breakout, close support, and passive. And that's all for now. I will be back discussing lines and how to balance my lines in my next video. But thanks for tuning in anyway. Alright, thanks, bye.